Welcome to C21 Drive Time. Our team of realtors will be sharing industry news and insights, the occasional interview with interesting people, and some of the most unreal real estate stories you have ever heard. And here's our hosts.
All right, so welcome back to C21 Drive Time, and we've got a special guest today. We've got the area chair, David P. Brown. David, thank you for coming on this morning.
Great, Chris. Glad to be here.
You know what? It's interesting, and I've just recently become part of the area association. So I want to have you on today because, you know, we're about 11,000 members strong, David.
That's correct. Just a little over 11,000. That's correct.
Well, so, you know, a big association, you know, from top to bottom in the province and representing a lot of different people, representing a lot of different towns, villages, cities, rural, you name it, commercial, resident, you name it. You get to be the chair and the representative of that. So let's start right there. I mean, we're gonna do this usually last backwards. I'll introduce you, but let's start with your area duties and we'll talk a bit about you as a realtor and have some fun at the end with maybe a story. So let's tell me a bit about the area, being the area chair.
Well, first of all, it's quite an honor to be selected by your other directors of the board to be the chair of your board and oversee all the goings on of the association in the province. As you said earlier, we cover everybody, which brings in a lot of challenges because we have 10 boards throughout the province, and each board has its own individuals and each board has its own way of thinking. We as the association become the one voice of all those boards combined. And the idea when it was originally set up, and this is our 75th anniversary this year, when it was originally set up, it was to be that one voice to government for all of our members. Government, if they hear one voice here, one voice here, they have a tendency of ignoring it. But if they have something as powerful as an association with the backing that we have, they have more a tendency of listening to what we have to say. As for duties, as the chair, the biggest thing I do is work day to day with the EO of the company, the EO of the organization, yep. And that's Brad Mitchell, which he has put together an incredible team with some great managers, Heather Coleman, Tammy Williams, Kate Bailey, etc. And they actually do a wonderful job for members behind the scene. And what we do a lot of is face-to-face with the government. I can probably meet with the government on an average 2 to 3 times a month, and sometimes at different levels. Sometimes it can be as high as the premier. Sometimes it's the service minister. We fall under Service Alberta, which is Nate Glubish's area. Yep. And then sometimes it's the deputy minister, David James, that we're meeting with. And it can other times just be the bureaucrats that we're meeting to iron out the last couple of things. But it's always a challenge because anybody who's ever dealt with government, they do things at government pace, not at realtor pace. We're used to having things go, yep. Finish a deal done overnight, couple of days. Government, it can be months and into years, unfortunately, before you get action done on items.
Yeah, and I don't think the average, real estate professional walking the street probably really understands the importance of that role as advocate to our government. Because is there a particular, let's say, example that you can think of that we really lobbied government or, it went to bat for our members and, it made a difference, we're going to say?
Absolutely. I think that one I like to talk about constantly is the land transfer tax. Mm-hmm. Alberta is one of the few provinces that has no land transfer tax. And that filters down to the realtor, that filters down to the consumer. I'll give you a quick example. My daughter is living in Halifax, and she is right now, her and her boyfriend are looking at buying their first ever home. Mm-hmm. The land transfer tax in Halifax is 1.5%. So they have to pay to the government. It's going to be close to $9,000 just for the privilege of buying a home.
Yeah.
No other reason. The government has nothing to do with the transaction or anything else. Our association has fought for many years, and every government that we see go in from going back almost to the, I don't want to say the Ralph Klein days, it's a little too far back, but Stelmach government, etc. We have lobbied the governments to not bring in a land transfer tax in Alberta. It actually hits some people very, very hard. And it takes away the number of people that can actually buy a home down the line, because if they got to come up with an extra 6,000 or 8,000, and it's not something you can add into a mortgage like you can with a CMHC fee. The money has to be there to pay your lawyer upon closing. So if you only had $10,000 or $15,000 in the bank and you want to buy a house, now all of a sudden you have to have 23 or 25,000 to buy that same house.
And our
So
last
behind,
election, go ahead.
sorry. So behind the scenes, that's something that we do that a lot of our members may not even know about. So when someone, as I said, I had a podcast with Tavis Taves the other day and talked to him as one of the people running for premier, and he promised in that podcast that if elected, there would be no land transfer from his government, land transfer tax, excuse me, from his government.
Yeah, and very important, because you're right. It's been on a federal scale as much as anything, because housing affordability right now has been one of the things that's happened, of course, with the ramp up of the market with inflation. So to have that transfer tax at the very end as an add-on, it's tough enough to scrape together the down payment, the closing costs, and then at the very, very end, that tax comes in and kind of wallops you. And a lot of Albertans don't realize how important that is till they go outside of our fine province to buy. And especially when they head to BC or other provinces across this wonderful nation we have, it can really add up. It's a bite at the end, and it's right at the very end of the transaction, is it not, David?
It is. The very first thing a realtor has to do in some of these other provinces, sit down and explain the land transfer tax to their buyers and say, hey, when we get everything done, you're going to have this additional cost. Do you have this money? And all of a sudden, a lot of them do not. And they have to back off from their desire to have a home. They've worked hard to collect the money they have in the bank so far, and now there's that other hurdle to get over.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that area does, because they do, as you said, they've got a wonderful team assembled and do a wonderful job. So how they're using, I'm going to say, group buying power to assist the day-to-day needs of a realtor. So some may or may not know, or the public may not know about things like our cellular availability with those plans. There's just a new one that's being rolled out, and I'll let you touch on that. So some great work being done by the area team to be able to, negotiate on behalf of our 11,000 members to get some savings to them and keep us doing our job.
Absolutely. This is where I love to pat our directors of our board on the back, because several years back, we looked and said, we're all practicing realtors. What can we put out for other realtors to help them do their jobs on a day-to-day basis, whether it's save them money or make their jobs easier? And several programs have come up. As you talked about, our area wireless is something that's been around for a while, that our realtors pay $50 a month for the service. Just to give you an example, I was on TELUS for 23 years. I was a TELUS strong person. I would never change to anything else. And I started looking into it. But my TELUS bills were anywhere from $400 to $600 every single month. And I thought, this is crazy. There's got to be something better. And I looked into the area wireless and I switched over, and I was worried before that I'd lose a good quality service, or, if I'm out of province or out of the country, whether I'd have issues. Not a concern whatsoever. The service is every bit as good as anything that I've ever had. And I got to say, sometimes even better, except for that one bad day that they had this year. And again, that was a Rogers program, not area wireless. But anyhow, at $50, I got 20 gigs of data every single month that I can use for that $20. Unlimited calling through Canada and the US, 24 hours. I mean, there's no set hours or anything like that. I mean, it allows me to do business, and I have yet to have anything more than $50 a month. It's incredible. And part of the program too is, if your phone is kind of on its last legs and you decide that you need to upgrade to another model, we do have programs available too that you can finance that into your bill. Like my son wanted an updated iPhone. He's a realtor as well. And he went to the iPhone's newest model 2 years ago. And instead of paying $50 a month, he paid $89 a month, which was his 50 plus 39 towards his phone every month till it paid out. and no interest on it or anything else. So it was a heck of a good program. That was our first one that we rolled out, and we had good success. Then our board decided there's got to be other programs we can look into. And one of the problems we have as realtors, we're all independent contractors. And being that nobody seems to have some programs, or if you want programs as an individual, they're too expensive to get by yourself.
Yep.
So the association looked into a health program, and we now launched last year our health and wellness program that realtors can now get dental coverage, they can get extra health coverage, they can get if you wellness, and I say by wellness, if you're feeling down and you need to talk to somebody, there's all kinds of programs that are available. And let's face it, the way our markets go up and down a lot, quite often a realtor may need to reach out to somebody, and it's hard to do it with a family member because they're maybe not as involved in the industry as you are, and they don't understand it as much. To talk to a third party person that may understand, that's a service we got. And our newest one that we're looking at rolling out, hopefully this month. We're still getting the last couple of kinks out of it, and the kinks aren't at our end, they're on Shell Oil's end, unfortunately, and we're getting those smoothed right out, is our new gas program. So under the gas program, starting off, all realtors will get 6 cents off a liter under this program at any Shell station they want to go to. There will be a certain card, it's like a fleet card that you will get. At the end of the month, they'll debit from your account whatever you've charged in gas for that particular month. We think it's going to be a super program. And as I said, starting off with 6 cents, but we're hoping to, as we get more and more realtors involved in the program, be able to build that up over the next period of time.
Absolutely. And that's just keeping dollars and cents in the pockets of professionals, which is
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We've done a couple of surveys, Chris, and we're finding that realtors in Alberta make about 20% less than realtors in BC and even Saskatchewan because a lot of the red tape that we have. Right. Another thing our association is doing is working with the provincial government to try and eliminate some of this red tape stuff that we have to jump through that costs our members more and more money. Yep. And for one quick example on that, municipalities quite often can charge a different fee to realtors that want to sell in the area. So for instance, I live in the city of Calgary. If I want to go do an open house in Okotoks, which is about 8-minute drive outside the city of Calgary, I have to go to Okotoks and get a license to do open houses there on Sunday. Because if not, if my signs are out, they check a name sheet, I guess. And if I'm not on that, they pick up my signs and I got to pay a nice fine to get them back. And we as realtors, we're licensed in the whole entire province. And it doesn't mean that I should be running up the Lloydminster and selling properties because I don't know the area, and I would refer it off to yourself or another member up there for sure. But somewhere that's within 5 to 10 minutes or 30 minutes of the city that we live in, we shouldn't have to be paying other fees. And if you think about Calgary, you've got Cochrane, you've got Airdrie, you've got Strathmore, you've got Okotoks. Should I have to be licensed in all of these in order to do business in there when I'm already licensed for the entire province? And many of the candidates that are running for premier now have guaranteed to us that they will work on this and get it eliminated, because there are exemptions out there. If you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, if you're an appraiser, you don't have to pay these, but apparently realtors do. Right.
Yeah, red tape reduction, as the UCP government touched on in the last election, was one of their their platforms planks, and they wanted to reduce that, which that's going to help us all. So it's neat to see that areas doing that, advocating the government, coming up with stuff with it for its members to keep money in their pocket. So I mean, important work. You've been on the board how long, David?
This is my 4th year on the area board.
Yep.
Before that, I was 6 years on the Calgary Real Estate Board.
So you come with a very deep experience in both from the Calgary level, being a realtor, and on the area board. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely. And it's amazing when you sit on a local board, you're focused just on the local concerns, as you should be.
Yep.
Right. But once you step up to a provincial board, it's amazing because you get to see, what's going on in Lloydminster, what's going on in Lethbridge, what's going on in Edmonton, et cetera. And to be able to have policies and procedures into place that'll work for everybody rather than just a particular group, it brings its own challenges.
It sure does. I was president of the local board here of Rald for a number of years, and then transitioned, applied, and was lucky enough to get a seat at the table at the association. So the same thing. You get a 10,000-foot view versus just on the local level, which is the intriguing part, but also carries its challenge too, because you're representing members from across the province with different needs and wants, and whether it's from whether they're selling an acreage in northern Alberta or they're selling their home in Calgary. I mean, they all has its sets of challenges that we as professionals help the people navigate and guide through. So yeah,
absolutely. And as you can imagine, when we're trying to do forms for the whole province or rules and regulations, each time it can bring on challenges.
Absolutely. So let's segue into that, is to David Brown, the realtor. How long have you been a realtor, David?
February past was 20 years.
Good for you.
So I came from a background, I was in the banking industry for quite a few years, worked for Canada Trust before it was with TD, and then was actually in the golf business for 10 years. So I've been doing sales. Even in the banking, you did sales because there was product lines that you moved. And even before that, I worked for Sears Canada for 10 years. So a lot of sales background. So it was a natural move for me to go into real estate. My brother had been in it for 10 years, and he said, you're great at it. Why don't you come in? We'll become partners, work together on some deals and stuff. And I was enthused with it, and then I got the bite, and it's one of those, it's like a incredible mosquito bite, shall we say. Once you're bit by it, you don't want to ever go back.
Yeah, it has its challenges on day to day, but then again, the reward of it is is the cool part. And so good for you, 20 years in. Now sometimes we have other guests on. So your number one goal today was to talk to you about being area president, chair, which is an important role and a time consuming role, as well as keeping up your day-to-day duties as a real estate professional. So if you can think back through those 20 years, is there a time when there was a funny story, or we call it an unreal estate story? Because in saying that, we have lots of guests on that we see all sorts of stuff, David, and I'm sure you'll attest to that.
Oh yes,
we deal with people on a daily basis, and we're in and out of homes and properties and stuff like that. So we get to see probably a lot more than the average bear gets to see. Is there a time when you had one that was comes to mind where it was fun, exciting, shocking? Oopsie,
well, I think we've all had a bit of just about every one of those. A lot of focus that I do is in the foreclosure business, Chris, yep. And I handle a lot of foreclosures for about 6-7 different financial institutions out of Ontario. Mm-hmm. And I see everything from a $10,000 mobile home to multi-million-dollar houses and everything in between. Some of them are fantastic units, and I'm not necessarily saying the $1 million ones. I've been into some of those that you wouldn't want to take your shoes off. Yeah. And I've been in some mobile homes that you could eat off the floor. They're just spectacular, and everything in between. But the story I just want to reach out on this, it's kind of a funny one, and shocked me. I think I was in the business for about 2 years, and I met this couple through another friend of mine. They were looking for a home, and I took them both out and showed them a few properties here and there. And the husband says to me, well, I work, so would you please take my wife out and show her the homes? And when we find one, then I'll come have a look at it and we'll go from there. And I said, absolutely. So the wife and myself and their son went out probably, half dozen times or more, and we found a home that was just going to work tremendously for them, and went through the whole procedure. We hit it off well by, I kind of got a feeling what she was looking for and what he was looking for, etc. Found them a nice home, wrote an offer, got the deal, etc. Well, about a month later, I get a call from the husband about 10 o'clock at night. And
that's never good. 10 o'clock at night. That's never
10
good.
o'clock at night from a client. You're thinking, oh God, the furnace is blown or the hot water tank. I got contacts, so I'll help them out. But I got the call from the husband, and it's funny now, but it wasn't at the time. He starts laying into me and says, my wife says she's leaving me. She's going to go with you for the rest of her life, and she's had enough of me, and you're her man, and she's going to settle down with you. And I'm like, the hell did this come from, right? All he did was being nice to the people, find them a house.
Oh my goodness.
So a lesson that I learned early was be nice, be friendly, but don't be too over friendly, because you never know where it's going to lead. And I'm hoping they stayed together. I unfortunately never heard from them. I did my annual things of sending cards and sort of stuff, but I never heard from them again. But it's one of the weirdest ones. And I mean, this guy went on for 35 minutes on the phone, up and down on me. And, you know, he worked so hard in his life to have this lovely wife and stuff. And how dare I be taking her away and everything else, right? You know,
well, obviously you got him a good home, David, but you know, there was other maybe problems that day.
I'm thinking there possibly was, but you know, that's just one of many. I've had great experiences on both the boards that I've sat on. You know, I've been fortunate enough to travel across our country in the United States representing the boards that I sat on, and met some incredible people and have some incredible stories. And as I always say, us realtors should sit down and write books, and we should have one person that organizes it, like yourself, Chris, that you go out and get a story from dozens and dozens of realtors, because I'll tell you what, there's some funny stories out there that you're doing.
We've had some eye openers. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, everything from the good, the bad, the ugly, and the, oh my, as you just said, really, this client really liked her realtor, and that's too much fun.
Absolutely.
David, we know you got a busy day on the go. You're a busy guy, being area chair, you know, you 20-year client load. We know you got lots to do. So, you know, we want to appreciate you giving us an update on what's happening at area and the important roles and duties that they're doing for the 11,000 plus members we have across the province, and giving us a little bit of a glimpse into your daily stuff, and a funny story too as well. So we couldn't be more appreciative, and we want to thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. And I'd like to leave it there. If we're working on another program, and of course you sitting on our board are well aware of, and you'd like to have me back for another chat on something, just that particular program, I'd be glad to come back and talk to you anytime. Yeah,
well, there's always a take two, chapter two. You know, we can always do that. So yeah, we'd love to have an update. We'll give it a few months. We'll get an update from you and go from there. So
great.
David, thanks again, and you have a great rest of your day, and you take care.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much, Chris.
You bet. All right, so thanks again for tuning in, and thanks to David P. Brown, at Area Chair, for coming in today and shedding a little light on what is happening at the provincial association level and things that are going on with his 11,000 members across the province, which is always wonderful to hear. And please subscribe, tune in wherever you find this wonderful podcast, wherever you're listening in from. You know, continue to check in with us. We're doing stuff on a weekly basis, and we're having some fun, providing some content, and hopefully either making you say, hey, that was worth my time, or giving you a good laugh. So take care, everybody.